So originally I started out waiting tables and going to college, and I had a regular ask me what I want to do when I grow up. So I said maybe a realtor, interior designer, architect, that type of thing. And he said, well, I know the broker at Century 21. Why don't you come meet with them? So I went there and met with them, and they were like, yeah, we'll hire you, get your license. And I'm like, okay. And I'll never forget, because her daughter was in the kitchen. Sorry, I'm such a weirdo. Her daughter was in the kitchen, and she was like, it is really, really hard. And I was like, just had the mindset like a go-getter, like, okay, well, if you can do it, I can do it. So went off to get my license and continued to go to college and waiting tables. And then I realized, wow, I don't get to sit behind a desk and answer a phone, and you want to buy a house. People don't come into the office. This isn't how it works. You know, I sold 2 houses that year, didn't really pursue it. And then when I decided to start a family young, I decided, okay, well, I better figure this out, because I don't want to pay a babysitter to wait tables or to continue going to college. So I need to do everything I can. And at Century 21, they didn't really have any free training. We had to pay for training. And at that time, I was living paycheck to paycheck, didn't really have any money. And I asked my broker, I said, is there any way that I can do this training and I'll just pay you back on my next commission? And she agreed. So I did the training, and I started doing everything they told me to do, such as target marketing and for sale by owners, and we had like homework to do, and we had to do it, and it was all online. So I did all that, and my first year with my son that I had with me full time, I felt like I was working over 40 hours a week, plus being a new mom probably felt that way. I just worked a lot and didn't make a lot of money. Of course, this is 20 years ago, because I've been a realtor for 20 years now. So at that time, I probably only made, I don't know, 27 or 30,000 the first year. Which, you know, I was working a lot, probably 27,000, maybe it was 22, I don't remember, but everything I did that year set me up for the following year, and I quadrupled it. So I just truly believe if you do exactly what you're taught to do, it's eventually going to happen. Like, there's no way you can fail as long as you stay consistent and persistent, and it'll just happen. So anyway, I was at Century 21 for about 7 years. I met with lots of brokers, Napier, Keller Williams, Long & Foster, RE/MAX, because they're always trying to recruit you, and I'm like, okay, I'll meet. And then one year I just felt like I was a little complacent. So I did meet with Hometown Realty, and was very happy, and joined, and doubled my income. I think I went from like 4 million to 8 million, you know, in commissions. Not commissions, sales. And then from there it just kind of went up. So I do feel like, you know, being with our hometown people, and the training that offers here, and being with a larger company, but like a large company, but we're a small company at the same time, and we're always trying to stay on top of trends and whatnot, I think it really helps. So yeah, and that's my little story.
That's awesome. Becky's probably too humble to admit this, but she's been top 10 at hometown, I mean, really forever. Ever since I can remember, I've been in it now for 11 years, I guess, and you've always been top 10 agent. So her track record is impressive. Today you have a team, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us about your team.
Okay, so I have a team. There's some of my team right here. So I have about 6 agents on the team, and some of them, I think the longest I've had the team now is probably about 3 years. I had a team before, but like I wasn't taught a lot about having a team, so it was really just a buyer's agent, and that was it. And that had gone pretty good, and now taking it to the next level and really enjoying helping and teaching everybody what I know and what I wish someone had taught me. After I got going in real estate, I heard it was really good to be somebody's assistant. We didn't really have teams when I started, so being on a team is 100% important because you learn a lot quicker. So.
Very good. Do you remember, because the whole idea of March is generating listings, right? Do you remember off the top of your head, do you remember one of your first listings and how you actually got that? One of your earlier listings, maybe.
Okay, actually I do. So, obviously when you get in the business, it was a seller's market when I started, and all I wanted was a listing, but all I had was buyers that we were having to bid on, you know, all these houses till they could get one. Sound a little familiar? So anyway, how I got the client was I actually door knocked in the neighborhood that I grew up in. I sent out an introductory letter. I let them know I was specializing in the area and I'd like to know about the area more. And I grew up in the area, but would like to know what they like about it or what they don't like about it. And I told them I'd be coming around to introduce myself. So then I went around to introduce myself. And I probably brought like a brochure with me, obviously clipboard, paper. You know, I told them that, you know, they'd see more of me. I asked them what they like about the neighborhood, what they don't like about the neighborhood, and asked them if they want to be included on my list, and I'd keep them up to date with recent sales and that type of thing, and then I'd mail every month. So the one client, he ended up contacting me for investment properties, and I started helping him buy investment properties, and back then some of them were like drive-by, sight unseen contracts. And then eventually I got the big sale, which was them buying a new house, and so they bought a house, and it was like, you know, this was 20 years ago, it's a big deal, it was like $450,000, and so, 450, and then I got to sell his house, which was maybe like around like 275 or something like that. So that, I don't know if that was my first one, but that was my first like A+ client.
Did you used to focus on specific neighborhoods, locations for your target market?
Yeah.
Just based on where you grew up and what you knew?
Well, I started with where I grew up, and then there's a formula to check the what's it called? Turnover ratio.
Oh.
To see how often, like, is it a starter neighborhood? Like, are they selling? Like, what is the turnover ratio in that neighborhood where they have constant sales? Those are the ones you want to focus on.
And you would mail them and then actually go by and see them?
Mm-hmm. Well, only the first time, yeah, and then pretty much just mail.
And then,
but if I missed them, I'd send them a letter, I missed you, and then come again. So basically it was like, wow, I got the letter, and then she actually did come to my house, you know? So it just showed that I felt like it was important to show, because I was very young, to show that I was aggressive. You want someone that's aggressive and assertive working for you, and that's a go-getter willing to pound the pavement. So that's kind of how it is.
we always hear that to really survive and make a career, rather, in real estate, listings are the key. Listings are lifelong, right?
Listers last.
That's right. To give us maybe an idea of your business, on average, you know off the top of your head, how many listings do you personally take per year?
I would say, obviously I used to, before the team, I did a lot more of my own sales. So now it might only be like, I don't know, maybe 25.
Only? Yeah, that's tough, man. Who else only does 25 listings a year? Pretty good situation. I'm imagining that you've been in business now for 20 years, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Goodness, 20 years. That's awesome. Good for you. You lasted. Initially, a lot of your generation was kind of more target marketing, farming neighborhoods, things like that. But as you grow in your business, there's more repeat customers, there's more referral business.
Yes.
How does it look for you now? If I said, Becky, I need you to generate a lead within the next 5 days, what are you going to do?
I'm going to call everybody I know and make it happen.
What type of dialogue do you use on the phone when you're calling people to generate listings?
I would basically say, like, hi, how's it going? I kind of go off the Ford dialogue. I don't know if you guys have heard that before, but you talk about family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So kind
Can
of
you say
catch
that
up with
again,
them.
please? Because I'm going to write that down.
Okay. Ford, family, occupation, like, oh, we just got promoted. Okay, well, that's good to know. Maybe you want to move. Recreation, what they do for fun, and then dreams, like, do they plan to buy investment properties? Do they plan to buy the next house? Whatever. And then I let them know that I'm trying to take my business to the next level this year, and wanted to know if they know of anybody that's thinking about buying or selling a home that maybe they can get me in touch with. And then also, would they like to know what their house is worth in today's market? Because over the past few years, our houses have definitely appreciated a lot, and I could pop by for 30 minutes and just kind of give them that information, whether they decide to do anything with it or not. And that's it.
So family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Guys, Becky sent me a script of some of the dialogue that she uses and she trains on with her team. And so obviously when you're reading off of a script, it's going to sound better when someone's just using the dialogue on the phone. But I'll read you the script now, and I can send you guys a copy of this. You heard her mention about calling to take her business to the next level. And obviously you have people that support you and want in your clients and past clients and family and friends, they want your business to go to the next level, right? Because they support you. Here's what the exact script is. Hi, I hope you're doing well and the year is off to a great start. Kind of the beginning of the year call, right? Where we always talk about annual review calls, right? I'm looking to take my business to the next level this year. To do that, I find it helpful to share with people what their house is worth in today's market. I find a lot of people don't exactly know the value of their home. Is there a good time I can pop by for about 30 minutes and provide you with your home's market value? Anybody in here doing pop buys with CMAs, providing home market values? I think a lot of us send things in the mail, right? Which is obviously a good step, actually going and seeing them. Can you think of maybe this quarter already, or towards the end of last year, where you actually went and delivered kind of like that complimentary CMA, kind of like just for fun, but it turned into something good? Do you have any of those stories?
Oh yeah, definitely. Probably even just, well, I guess the most recent one I can think of, which I guess we're probably gonna go over later, is like on a listing. I think it's really important to like promote it the most you possibly can, which one of them is if you know you're getting the listing, or you know you got the listing, you know when it's going on the market, is plan for a letter to go out to the whole neighborhood a week before your open house and invite them to your open house and let them know that you would love for them to find your neighbor, or maybe they're just curious of what their neighbor has done as far as updates. And then I'll have a CMA there for that house, which will also entice the people that come by, like, oh, well, God, I didn't really, you know, my house is pretty comparable, or my house is nicer, do you think it's worth more? So getting a listing that way for sure. But yeah, no, there's definitely plenty of times just staying in touch with my past clients that I've sold houses to just even 4 years ago, and they're like, wow, I can't believe, you know, I have that much equity. I like to tell clients that the great thing about owning a home is your instant equity is like an automatic savings account. So all you do is pay your mortgage, and obviously write off the taxes on your, write off the interest on your taxes, and your house appreciates at the same time, kind of like an automatic savings account. So people really like that, and when they actually see like, oh my gosh, I've, you know, made $60,000 or $40,000 just for living in my house and paid it down on top of that, you know, it definitely triggers people to know, wow, we weren't really thinking about moving, but we wanted to move, but we didn't really realize we can do it now. So
Very good.
long-winded answer.
No, that's great. I like the idea of the neighbors coming by to the open house and having to generate listings. I think a lot of us look at open houses as a way to pick up buyers, but it looks like you're looking at it from a different perspective. Is if listings help you last in the business, we can generate those open houses too.
Yeah.
Do you
and the first hour is just for the neighbors to make that clear, and then I let them know that the public's coming for the next 2 after that.
Very cool.
So it's not just for sellers.
Do you? I mean, are you open house just about every listing that you do?
Yes.
Do you ever have any objections from sellers on not wanting to do an open house?
Yes.
How do you handle that?
Well,
Argue with them? Tell them they're wrong?
Yeah, no, I probably pretty much just let them know, like, I can understand your concern, you know, this is a lovely home. I guess, okay, their objections have probably either been like, well, if they're gonna see it on the internet, they can just set up a showing, why do I have to do an open house? And then I let them know, well, the thing about an open house is it actually brings in people that weren't even necessarily thinking about buying a house. Let me ask you, when you bought this house, were you planning on buying a house, or any of the houses have you owned? Because personally me, 3 of the houses I bought, I didn't even plan on buying a house. It just kind of happened. So try to convince them that way, and then let them know, like, if it's a big, nice house and they're concerned about like traffic or being with everybody in the house, obviously I tell them you should be putting up your belongings anyway. I've never had anything happen. A lot of people have cameras now. But I can let them know I'll have another agent with me as well, and we'll, you know, escort them through to an extent.
Kind of reminds me, we talked about with our team this morning, the automatic yes technique, right? Like, it would be great to have more exposure for your home, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Right? Talk about the automatic yes technique. This is from Tom Hopkins. Have you read his books? Are you a Tom Hopkins? Have you done a lot of training with that company?
I started
Okay,
with
gotcha.
Tom Hopkins.
Okay.
My broker told me, he was like,
Tell us about that, because this, like, Tom Hopkins kind of predates Buffini and Mike Farron. This is
he
like,
does.
tell us
So,
about Tom Hopkins.
now
Like,
I've heard
I
about
honestly
it.
have not heard a lot of them. But using it.
So I feel like some of the techniques now are probably a little old school, and like they're not obviously the newest. But going on a listing appointment to me was like the pot of gold, because that is like awesome, because you have a listing, you can sell it from anywhere, and a listing, they say, usually should generate like 3 other leads. So listing, that's why they say listers last. So I did memorize some scripts. I would say them in my head, like objection handling on the way to the appointment, because I did not want to deal with, I'll think it over, we'll call you, we have somebody else to meet with, so I have something to say in all of those situations to try to go ahead and get the paperwork approved and go forward, because of course the way I'm looking at it, who better to serve you than myself? So don't waste your time. So anyway, but you want me to go over kind of like my
Please,
script?
I would love to hear some of your script. That'd be awesome.
Or should I start like from where I walk in the house?
I just
Question.
maybe first explain what the automatic yes technique is.
Okay, the automatic yes is basically asking them certain questions with certain words that are like,
Here's some examples. You'd like to do business with a professional, wouldn't you? A reputation for professionalism is important, isn't it?
Yes.
So you guide them very quickly.
Yes,
Yeah.
guide them with a bunch of minor yeses to get the ultimate yes, which is your business. So.
Before we actually, let's say we've got the lead. So you've done a good job, you're making your calls, you've been doing the pop buys, the CMAs, and you've generated a listing appointment. Okay, maybe your appointment is this Friday afternoon, and you have to pre-qualify that appointment. You sent me a seller information sheet. Without reading through this line, this is what Becky's seller information sheet looks like. It's 2 pages, different questions she wants to get answered. Without you even looking at it, tell us some of these questions, what information you're really trying to get before you go on that appointment.
Okay, so before I go on the appointment, I'll definitely ask them, if they've done any improvements to their house, what they think their house is worth, because you kind of want to know, like, up front what standpoint they're coming, what they're thinking. Back in the day, Zillow was very off. It used to be 60, 75,000 off, and if they're thinking Zillow, I might need to bring them back down to reality. I guess Dean had told Tommy a really good question that I do like, which was, is there any comparable sales in your neighborhood that you would like me to include in my market analysis? I really like that. I got that from Tommy's training last week. And the reason it's so important is because when you're at that listing appointment, like, I don't know, multiple times, they'll be like, what about this house? And you're sitting there with your CMA prepared. It does not include this one house that they have compared their house to. And there could be multiple reasons. It's too big, it's too small, it was a year ago, whatever. So it's nice to know that ahead of time so you can come there prepared with information on what you think about that house compared to yours. But other than that, it's basically just asking if they've done updates and a couple questions like, why are you moving? What's your time frame? And that's pretty simple. The rest of the questions I use as I'm walking through the house, because if it's somebody I don't know, I want to build rapport. So that's when I use the rest of the questions.
Fantastic. Guys, when she talks about the comparable sales, basically what happens is a lot of times what we do is we say, okay, well, the house is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom. And so we just automatically go to MLS, we search for 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bath houses, but maybe their neighbor's house is a 3-bedroom house that sold 3 months ago. Like, the client's gonna ask about that. So usually a decent technique for this is you go to the map on MLS and you type in the address, you just pull out the map a little bit and see if there's been any recent sales, no matter what the criteria is, that might be a neighbor or two. That way you kind of have all your bases covered. At this point, Becky, there's probably many neighborhoods in many areas where if I just told you the general condition, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, you could probably off the top of your head give me a decent price range. But still, there's a lot of prep work that goes into this, developing CMAs and all that kind of stuff. On average, how much time do you spend preparing for a listing? What does that look like for you? Is it all market analysis stuff? Is it practicing your dialogues?
So now I have it down pat, so I don't need to practice my dialogue. So really it's pretty much just the market analysis. I feel like the more you do, the better you're gonna get. There's so many different things you're comparing, whether the house has a basement, whether it's a split foyer, tri-level rancher, whatever, new, old, area, acreage, there's so many things that go into it. And because I was in the market where, everything tanked and went down and people were starting to have listings that were on the market longer and expiring, because you never want that to happen while you have it listed, because then all they do is they end up going to the price you finally recommended with the other agent and you just wasted all your time. So I do feel like doing a proper CMA is like a science as far as pricing the house. So I do spend a good amount of time on it. And if you have time and there's no previous history of the house, or you can't find a picture of it, or maybe it's a new house and there's no picture of it anywhere, it's really nice to drive by it, take a picture of it to include it in your report, and then also maybe look at some of the comparable properties to see if like their lot is the same, or you know, what kind of, how much it compares to that house, to be more familiar. So I'd probably say about at least 45 minutes.
Awesome.
Maybe 30.
I am going to assume that at this point in your career, a majority of your listing appointments are not competitive. Is that a fair assumption? Or do you still think you have a lot of competitive appointments?
No, they're right now, I don't know if it's just the market or being in the business so long, but yeah, they're not as competitive, but I've definitely gotten competitive ones.
Sure, but obviously whether it's competitive or not, the same amount of preparation is still gonna go into them because you're there to provide great service.
Yeah.
When you are competing on a listing, what do you hang your hat on? Like what's your, not to like ask like what's your closing pitch, but I mean, why ultimately do people hire Becky Parker to list their house?
Well, I let them know that I'm gonna work harder or smarter than anybody else to get their house sold, that I have a proven marketing technique, that, you know, I'm gonna keep them informed every step of the way, that I have top negotiating skills, that I am gonna yield them more money than what I feel like obviously they could do on their own, and represent their best interests and make this as easy and stress-free as possible.
Fantastic. All right, I want to get into the actual list appointment. Is the top folder your listing packet?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, you mind if I pass this around?
Nope.
Tell us about, I mean, you know off the top of your head what's in this, right?
Mhm.
Tell us what your listing packet looks like, what's in there, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Go ahead and pass it around.
So, let's see, so obviously I have a folder, and I include in there, my market analysis, which I do use the CMA wizard on MLS, and I do make adjustments for square footage, or if it has garages, or that kind of thing. So the first thing, I put it in a clear binder, or clear report cover with the binder. I put the market analysis, and then I actually cover page of the market analysis, then the tax record, the whole CMA, then I do a seller net sheet, then I do my marketing overview for the property, which is everything I'm gonna do to get their house sold. And then last but not least, a checklist that I have, it's called Dress Your House for Success, Get the Most Out of Your Investment, with a bunch of tips on what they need to do to get their house show ready, as far as decluttering, as far as like cleaning, it goes beyond everyday cleaning, you know, clean your windows to bring the outside in, you know, as far as, you know, get rid of collections, because collections can be a distraction, we want them to see the house, that kind of thing. So all that's in there, and then also in the folder is like a real estate photo checklist from my photographer, and then a flyer from my stager about why it's important to stage.
You use professional photography.
Mm-hmm.
Sign post installation, you're not doing the sign frames, or do you use sign frames?
No.
Sign post, okay, very good. And sell media on my stage is important, because I don't believe it that much. You sell me.
I 100% believe in it. I guess the flyer's going around. I forget what the actual percentage is on it. But basically, okay, so they do two things. So I do go, when I do walk through the house, or no, usually after I know I got the listing, we've gone over that, I'll say, hey, do you want me to go through really quick and kind of tell you guys some things to do? And they usually always say yes. I'll tell them, take all the magnets off your refrigerator, you know, clear up the counters. I'll tell them what to take off of their counters, the paper towel holder, the toaster, you know, keep it very limited on items on the counter, move the sponges and the soap, just to make it look like more free space in the kitchen. And then if they have collections, like the lady I went to the other day, she had these 2 towers of DVDs. I told her, like, she said, well, I watched these. And I said, yeah, but, you know, if you could just pack up a lot of them, you know, you have to pack and move anyway, it kind of makes sense. They said, like, 3 items or more on a nightstand or a coffee table can often seem cluttered. It depends on how it looks. So they said, you know, 3 or less is better. And so I kind of give them a tip. But if the house is going to require a little bit more, I have found that for like $150, my stager will come through and she will get down to the nitty gritty with them and go in complete detail of everything they need to do. And then they understand it and receive it from her better. And, you know, when I go through, I'm very, you know, very energetic, and I'm like, like, I know you live here, I know this is your house, your family, when I'm walking through, I'm talking about the cute pictures on the wall, but I let them know we're supposed to put them down, because then people start looking at pictures on the wall, and it'll take away from the experience of the house, and then envisioning themselves in it. And then I remind them, you have to pack up and move anyway. But like I said, bringing my stager in there, the way they communicate with them, they really get it motivated, they really get in the groove, and they receive it better from them. And depending on how big the house is, she definitely spends a good amount of time, then sends a whole email with a checklist, with photos on, certain things they can do. Now, certain situations, like I have one now, that there's 2 rooms that are completely empty. She thought she was gonna move in with her daughter. They were finishing the basement. The daughter got a divorce, had to sell the home. So she stayed put in her house, already sold her furniture. And so yes, I am getting my stager to stage her dining room and her living room, even though she has a family room, just because I know that it just brings that warm, cozy feeling. And I really got to experience the staging when I staged my own house. I moved out of it, it was vacant, we painted it, we did the hardwood floors, we made everything all perfect. But I told her that I sold my house, I was gonna review offers, but I got an insane offer and accepted it. But I told her 100%, I at least sold my house for $35,000 more because it was staged. And I truly believe that.
One of the thing that I heard that I've never, is complete perspective shift for me, and kind of light bulb go off as you're talking, you say they hear it different from the stager. Really, when you bring a stager in, it almost like takes a little bit of stress off the seller.
Correct.
In a way. I never thought about it that way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Just for technical purposes, so people can understand how you do it, you pay for the photography.
Mm-hmm.
You pay for the stager?
Yeah, so there's staging consult that I'll pay for if it's needed, or I'll pay for minor staging.
Got it.
So anything that's like larger than that, obviously we'll talk to them about like, hey, I had another client in Richmond, and they really didn't want to do the staging, and I really told them, like, trust me, you spend this $2,500, I know I will at least get you $5,000 more. So that'll be your staging money and some. And they agreed, and they realized after the furniture came in, oh my gosh, like, you were so right about that. So
how important this used to, I feel like I haven't even heard this phrase in forever. A while, like I would say 7-8 years ago, it was like really popular. Virtual tours. Do you do virtual tours like the Matterports? Do you do any of that stuff?
On the nice big listings.
Okay.
So yeah, they bring in, they're really good for relocation, people relocating here. Sold a couple for them not even actually coming to see the house.
Very good. Okay, cool.
Because you can walk through it.
When part of your list package obviously includes, you have really 2 main parts, or 3 main parts to a listing appointment. You have kind of the walkthrough when you're taking notes. You have the marketing portion, and you have the pricing portion. How often are you actually spending time on the marketing side of things in your appointments? I mean, you go you go in front to back as far as reviewing all of it, or can you just talk about your marketing strategy to the seller? How do you do it?
Yeah, I pretty much spend most of my time with the rapport, just like talking to them, looking at their house. I brought it with me in case some of you don't know, but I definitely, like, especially when I'm trying to impress them, and maybe they are, interviewing with other agents, I do come through with my little DeWalt laser tape measure, which everyone is so fascinated by. And I measure the room, especially if there isn't already measurements online. And then as I'm doing that, I'm asking some of my further pre-qualifying questions. And then we sit down, I go over my little script, and then we go over the market analysis. And by then, we've already pretty much agreed on the price. And then, I'll talk about staging or what they need to do. We've gone over the seller net sheet, and then we go over paperwork. So as far as my marketing overview that's in there, I don't normally go over that, but if I do, I'll just kind of like briefly go over it and let them know they can, read it later, and that's fine.
Very good.
So.
We see today still a ton of multiple offer situations. How do you personally like to handle these? Do you like to list it knowing you're getting multiple offers and set that deadline? Do you like to just let it fly? Does it depend? What's your take on that?
Okay, so my take is definitely to plan on a day to review offers so we can allow everybody the chance to get in there. But then I let them know that there could be a chance that we get an incredible offer that we don't want to say no to, that we don't want them to walk away either. So I do definitely put in the agent-only comments that, seller reserves the right to accept an offer sooner. So.
What do you think about coming soon?
And yes, do the coming soon.
Tell us What's your experience with police?
I think coming soon is important because obviously it really gives a deadline to the seller, number one. Number two, it's a selling techniques for the bringing in the buyers, but also gaining the trust of your seller to let them know, hey, I can take a picture of the outside, we can put the sign up, people are gonna start driving by, we can start gaining interest of people so that when we actually do go on the market, they're all ready, they might have their showing scheduled before we go active, and we can get more exposure, and they're always down for it. So yeah, I do definitely believe in the coming soon.
At the perspective, again, it's fantastic. Gaining the trust of the seller early and giving them an actual deadline. Like, guys, we're going hot. Like, we're already in. All we need to do is flip one thing. It's awesome. Yeah. Okay, what I want to close out with is, let's go ahead and pass around your little portfolio binder here. But I want you to tell, like, are you using this still?
No.
I remember when I was at the ripe young age of 23, I met with Becky because I was trying to learn from her on how to generate and sell some houses. And you shared this with me then.
Okay.
Which is pretty awesome. Tell us what this is, please.
Okay, so basically it's a portfolio. Obviously when I had my license and I was 21 years old, you're young, obviously I didn't have the experience or the sales. So I wanted some credibility and I wanted something to sell me to the sellers besides me just trying on my own. So in that market, maybe there was competitive listings, but not as much as we've gone through probably over the years. So basically I put together a portfolio, and in the beginning of it, I'll have some of my background, about my family, about my interest. Then it had information about, like, I don't know, how an appraiser sees your house, how the tax assessor sees your house, how the buyer sees your house, and like different perspectives of how people view their home, the problems of overpricing, all the associated paperwork with selling your home, so they can see what's all involved, or it's really good with sale by owners as well. And then, marketing flyers, and then at the end, testimonials and reviews from clients that are usually like handwritten letters or whatever it was, email, that type of thing. And what I would do is I would take the appointment and I'd let them know, especially if it was competitive, and I didn't know them, it was an opportunity for me to build rapport and see the house. So I'd let them know, like, hey, I'm gonna come by on this day, take a look at your home, and then on this day, we're gonna go over the market analysis. So after I go through their home and I tour it, talk to them a little bit, maybe 30 minutes, 20 minutes, that kind of thing. I say, hey, I have this portfolio, if you wanna look over it and ask any questions, when I come back tomorrow, that would be great, just jot it down and we'll go over it then. So then I would leave, and there is some people that are interested, like kind of going to a website or something to read up on the agent. It's kind of the same thing, but it's tangible in their hands. So they would look over it, and then I come back, they usually don't have any questions, but hopefully it kind of sold me while I was there. And then being new and not having the experience on doing a market analysis, it is really hard to gauge an idea of a price or a price range for a home without seeing it. Now I've done it so much, I can do that, but at the beginning it was hard, so it gave me the opportunity to get in, look at the house, retain it, think about it, process it, really compare it to other homes, then being there, being on the spot, being caught up in the whole, talking to them, trying to get the listing, going over your CMA and telling them a price. So that was kind of the point of that.
I think maybe it was a Mike Ferry recommended tactic where maybe it was me, I can't remember, where it's like you drop off the CMA or the listing appointment or like the package like the day before. It's like you go and put it in their mailbox. So it's just kind of like an extra level of service. You drop it on their doorstep. This is a whole different level, because this is like relational marketing. This is about you and your business. This isn't about what your house is worth. So I want to make sure I understood it correctly. Do you bring that with you, or did you bring that with you on the initial appointment, or did you bring it by ahead of time and then get it when you come back to actually talk to them about price?
Correct. I brought it by ahead of time, and then I came back to actually talk about the pricing.
Did you come up with this idea like on your own? Did you learn this from somebody?
I did kind of learn it somewhere, and if I can get my hands on it, which I meant to beforehand, I can send, if anybody's interested, email me and I'll just send you the little things you might want to include in one if you want to make one for yourself.
And do you ever feel the need to use it now? Do you use it? Do you go through it often?
No.
Or is it kind of just an old?
It is updated with Hometown in there, and I did use it maybe a little bit when I came over here, but yeah, it's definitely I don't use it now. So.
Well, at this point, again, like a many of your clients are repeat from referral clients. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about word swap, and I printed these out in case you had them, the thing that you sent me. Do you guys have any questions, by the way? Sorry, I haven't really asked. Does anybody have any questions for Becky?
Am I just information overload? Sorry.
I think all of you guys have learned a little bit. I've learned a little bit today, right? I do want to cover one more topic with Miss Becky, but if you guys have any questions, please let me know, okay? Here's a list of them if you want. But talk to us about word swap. This is another Tom Hopkins thing that you said you were a big fan of.
Oh yeah. So, like, I try to teach my team and everybody not to say certain words because I just feel like they make me cringe. Like when people say, hey, I need you to sign here. I don't like the word sign. I just feel like just too strong, too like committed, like you're signing your life away. I just like to say you can review and approve. I just feel like approve sounds softer than sign. The other one is monthly payment. I don't want to talk about it being a monthly payment. I'd rather call it a monthly investment. The other one is down payment. I'd rather call that the initial investment. I definitely, I've had people come into real estate and, well, I've got my customer, and I'm like, this is not retail. Do not call them customer. And I don't even really like client. Client is okay, but really it's the people I serve. Instead of saying like my other clients, kind of like I own them, it's the people I serve. And then I don't like to call it a contract. Let's go ahead and sign the contract. Like, I really don't like those two words together. Let's go ahead and approve the paperwork. It just sounds better. And then I don't call it a listing contract. I call it the marketing paperwork, and I don't say, hey, I'm ready to list your house. I'm ready to market your house. I don't want to just list it. I want to market it. And then definitely don't like to say meet or make an appointment. I say, let's, if I can visit or if I can pop by.
Very good. Fantastic. Questions? Anybody? Questions for Becky Parker? Nothing. Justin.
Becky, what's your routine like? Do you have a morning routine, afternoon, evening? What's your consistent routine like?
So I usually
That's all I
get.
asked that question.
I know, right? So I usually get up at 5:30 and I drink my coffee, go on my computer, check emails, check for houses for people, and then I work out from anywhere from 6 to 6:30 to 7:30, and then usually to 7. Then I get ready, get to the office by 8:30, and go on about my day or appointments. Monday I do have a team meeting, so we meet at 9 o'clock. We usually finish up by 9:30, latest is 10, and then we do call blocking until 12 o'clock, because I feel like setting your week out by making your calls on a Monday really gets you ahead, because if you don't do that, you get caught up in all these other little tasks, and then it just carries on to the next day, and you're not doing prospecting, and this is a contact sport, so 90% of our time needs to be prospecting. So.
Nice idea. Call block on Mondays. Mike?
Becky, would you tell everybody what time you get to the office again?
8:30.
8:30. That's great, thanks. We should quiz a lot of people on that one.
Would you say that the majority of the time when you're reaching out to people that you're actually saying like, hey, do you know someone who needs help buying or selling, or are you finding other value adds like our Easter egg hunt or our marketing or business to business? Like, how do you choose to spend most of your touches?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Definitely, upcoming holidays or summertime with vacations. But other than that, our team, we are doing our separate Easter egg hunt. It's really fun. We get bounce houses, we do the egg hunt, cotton candy, popcorn, hot dogs, all that fun stuff, and games. So I do send out the letter, and then I do have a reason to call them. And what I have found, the most important thing of doing the events is actually the phone call. It's not whether or not they can come, because then you're talking to them, and even if they can't make it, they're like, oh, by the way, I had somebody yesterday, they say, we're doing some fixing up of our house. We'd like you to come by in a month. We're thinking about downsizing. So I said, that's great. So yeah, we have Easter event. I do Santa Claus, same thing Hometown does with the Santa Claus coming to the office and taking pictures of the kids and all that kind of stuff, and have treats and all that. And then we do also another event. So my house is on a pond, so we'll do a hooking and cooking fishing event for kids, and so obviously I have a reason to call for that. But other than that, yes. Or I really like what Kevin said a couple weeks ago, when he said he's made his calls. He's even called a past client and pretty much said like, hey, I actually have somebody looking in your neighborhood. Do you know anybody thinking about selling? And then it kind of makes the wheels turn of that client that, well, I've been in my house for years. My wife and I have talked about it. Or maybe if they do know of a neighbor that's thinking about selling, then you can get that listing appointment. And even if you don't have a buyer in that neighborhood, I'm sure you could find one, or I'm sure somebody else at hometown has one, so it's not exactly,
Right.
and it just works, and it gives out for conversation, and it makes people realize that you're busy and you're doing things, or just even the just listed script. So yeah, there's lots of different reasons to call. I know people kind of get stuck and they're like, I've already called them, I don't have anything else to say, I've already asked if they have any referrals multiple times. But yes, if you can call with another reason, that's always great. Or the item of value with the Buffini program, the mailers that go out every month is helpful too.
The just listing script, and I have a buyer for your home. Eric, how long have you been doing it now? How long have you done this?
Over 3 years.
Wow, that's awesome. So, like, a lot of times I think people think that sounds just too aggressive or too pushy. But like, all of your friends should already know you're a realtor, and many of your friends want to support your business. So it's not as awkward when you kind of put it in perspective. If they're going to answer, they're willing to help you anyway. I will tell you, and Becky is a much better example of generating business than I am. I would say 75% of actual prospecting calls that I make, like I am going to be proactive and ask for business, I'm inviting them to some sort of event. It's always a simple reason to call that always leads into the question, well, how's the real estate business, right?
Right, exactly.
No, you got a question?
What's your follow-up process like? Like once the house is under contract or even after you close, what does that look like for you?
So I'm really big on, as far as the listing, I'm really big on handwritten notes. So I'll definitely write a note with our first initial phone call, and then I definitely write a note after my listing presentation. I write another note when it goes under contract, and then I write an additional note when it closes. So that's my follow-up. As far, besides communicating, throughout the process, once it goes under contract, like, hey, they're doing their inspection, the appraiser's coming, we were worried about appraising, I will go meet the appraiser at the home and provide comps, and every time I've done that, it always appraises, so, it always helps, at least, and then, so it also, and I'll tell them that at the listing appointment too, like, if we're, or, if it's sold way higher, or whatever the situation is, than what we listed at. Is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah, or even like after the transaction's over, like how do you maintain a relationship with the seller?
Oh, good point. Probably my events, obviously, and then just calling and touching base. Like, let's say they've bought another home, so I call them at their 1 month anniversary, call them, and I send out like an anniversary card after a year. I have not been doing the item of value with the Buffini, but I think it's really good. I think especially when you first start and you're trying to generate business and trying to get repeat customers, it's really good to have systems in place and stick to it. So you can all of a sudden get that flood of business where you're not constantly looking for your next lead. But as far as follow-up, yeah, probably in Facebook, social media, and just the events throughout the year.
Cool. That's great.
I think that what she was asking, she's big on like having even people's kids' birthdays.
Yeah.
So like when they're having kids, coming out to their house to bring a little something. So she's very detailed on those little things that people might think like, wow, she really cares about me, about my kids, about what's going on in my life. Is it somebody in the hospital? So she's big on that. She teaches that.
Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, if they have a baby, or if there's a loss in the family, or they lost their grandma, they lost their pet, I'll send a card in the mail. So
yeah, she always makes sure that when we have our, like people's information that we have, birthdays, every little thing, anniversary, important dates that we can reach out and,
More reasons to call.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's awesome. A lot of times it seems like for the amount of business that Becky does, to do that, a lot of times I think people have this misconception that you have to be extremely detailed and structured for every single hour of your day. In the end, we get to the office at 8:30, we make phone calls on Mondays, and then we try to set the rest of the week up for success. Other than that, it's like, it's really not that, it's not this complicated equation to do this, right?
No, but I do try to be systematic with
course.
like the notes after the call, otherwise you get behind, you don't get all the stuff done.
That's awesome. Well, guys, give me a round of applause to Becky.